Hey Merfolk fans, I'm Joe. Thanks very much for joining me today. If you'd like to support my channel, please check out the link above to my Patreon page. I'll also put the link down below in the description. I'm here with a replay of a Modern League. I wanted to show you guys the deck list that I've been working with for the last week or so. I know I just finished my in-depth sideboarding guide where I had Relic of Progenitus in the main deck. But since then, there's been a ban list update. Bridge from Below has been banned. And so I guess there's supposed to be less Hogak, but I think it's just been reincarnated with Hedron Crabs and Prized Amalgams. And the deck is pretty crazy still, actually. However, I don't know. I got a little bit tired of running Relic in the main, not because it wasn't doing a good job, but just because things in the format in general have been getting shaken up, not just by the ban list, but by a couple of big things that really affect how we want to be building our deck right now. Mainly it's Plague Engineer. The deck is played in some main decks even right now. I'm just watching some Jund videos right now from Reed Duke, and he has a single Plague Engineer in the main deck, and I know some lists between the main and the sideboard are running a full playset of Plague Engineers. And the main reason this card is seeing so much play is that Humans is one of the top decks, but it also just hits lots of random things. If you're playing against blue-white control, you can name Wizard, and it just immediately kills any Snapcasters or Vendilion clicks. So, you know, it has a lot of unexpected but powerful interactions like that. So Plague Engineer, seeing a lot of play, and it's causing us to have to sort of adjust our strategy. Since we're obviously a tribal deck, Plague Engineer hits us harder than most decks. Some of our cards get hit particularly hard, like Master of Waves. Master of Waves, you bring that guy up here. Of course, you guys know what Master of Waves is all about, but he is our 4-drop, 2/1 bomb that's supposed to bring a huge army along with him. But if we have this guy in hand and the opponent has a Plague Engineer on the board, we just can't cast him because he'll go straight to the graveyard because he has 1 toughness. So frustrating things like that where powerful cards in our deck are just completely nullified by this new Plague Engineer card from Modern Horizons. So how do we adjust? How do we adapt? Well, first of all, we're going to take out all the Master of Waves and just replace them with Merrow Reejereys. This is just another Lord, which is going to increase our creature's toughnesses beyond, you know, what Plague Engineer can combat. So having 12 Lords, I think, is sort of the general consensus right now. Seems like a good place to be. There's also a bit of a combo in Jund between Plague Engineer and Renin 6. So if Plague Engineer makes your Lords into 1/1s, then Renin 6 can just ping them and pick them off one by one. And so it can be really, really hard to fight through. So we're going to want the 12 Lords, including Reejerey. And with Reejerey in the deck, instead of Master of Waves, it allows us to go down to 19 lands. I trimmed a Waterlogged Grove. I think 3 is a good place to be with those guys. I have taken a lot of damage from them, although, again, I don't think I lose games left and right because of them. But many games I feel like I just draw too many. The format's really fast, and I don't know that 4 is exactly where we want to be. Totally possible that you could cut the Minamo. Totally possible that you could just trim an island. I think the verdict is still not completely in as far as, you know, running a full playset of Waterlogged Groves. So down to 19 lands opens up 1 flex slot. I stuck an Echoing Truth from the sideboard into the main deck. It's just extremely flexible. I'm rarely unhappy to see it. You're playing Arclight Phoenixes, you can just bounce a couple of those things. Obviously, Thing in the Ice gets bounced, a bunch of Tarmogoyfs, bounce a bunch of tokens. Echoing Truth is pretty solid. You can even get rid of a Game 1 Ensnaring Bridge if you happen to draw your Singleton Echoing Truth. Okay, and then the other flex slots, which previously had been occupied by Harbinger, not in my list, but in most lists, I'm now running a full playset of Tidebinder Mages in the main, just kind of neatly replacing Harbinger. I've said a whole bunch on the Discord with a lot of different people that I think Harbinger is just kind of a draft card, like a limited card. It's the fact that it costs 4 to play with Flash, the fact that it requires the opponent's creature to be tapped in order for its ability to be useful, just makes it so narrow. So Harbinger, to me, has always felt like a weak link in our deck. Tidebinder Mage, on the other hand, is sort of like the closest that we have to removal in our colors, especially in our tribe. There's so many red and green decks just running around right now, and I feel like I've been justified in running Tidebinder Mage in my last few leagues. At the very top of the format right now, you have this new Hogak deck, which, Hogak is a green creature, so he gets locked down by Tidebinder Mage. Then you've got both versions of Phoenix, blue-red and regular mono-red. Then you've got Jund, Rock, Infect, Druid combo, Ponza, Goblins, Zoo, multiple sort of iterations, variations of Zoo. So Tidebinder Mage is not nearly as narrow as it seems. Most of the creatures in the format that we need to deal with happen to be red or green. Yeah, Death Shadows, Gurmag Anglers, those kinds of things. Some zombies are black. Tidebinder Mage doesn't do a lot against those, but sort of similar to how Plague Engineer has niche applications, Tidebinder Mage does as well. So for example, against Urza combo, Tidebinder Mage can tap down a Goblin Engineer, preventing it from being able to activate and bring something back from the graveyard. So even against basically what seems kind of like a mono-blue deck, this Urza deck, it is actually a Grixis deck. They do play red creatures, and Tidebinder Mage can help us there. So yeah, it helps the burn matchup. Always, you see burn like once a league or something like that. Helps the Hogak matchup, and it's been feeling really solid. Actually, kind of the MVP in my last couple leagues. Really helps the Jund matchups, these mid-range matchups. So yeah, Tidebinder Mage in the main deck. It sort of does what I was aiming to achieve with the 4 main deck relics in a sense, where we shift our sideboard cards into the main deck, including this Echoing Truth actually, which then opens up spots to sort of increase the power of our sideboard. We get to just get more of what we want to be doing in the sideboard. So Tidebinder Mage, moving from the sideboard into the main, makes a lot more space, to get a couple Kiras, a couple Dismembers, all 4 relics, 3 Phyrexian Revokers, 3 Deprives, and between the main and the side, I do have 2 Echoing Truths. So this is where I'm at right now. The sideboard guide that I just put up on my Patreon page, I think is still very useful, because it shows my thinking on what cards are important in all the different matchups. But if this list, in fact, sort of feels like something I want to be sticking with in the coming weeks, I'll start working on a revised sideboarding guide for this build. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and see how round 1 went. All right, I'm here for game 1 of my first round. I won the die roll. And this is a really beautiful Merfolk hand. Let's see if that Tidebinder Mage comes in handy. Opponent mulligan to 6. We play our island and pass. All right, Spire Bluff Canal for Serum Visions. So could be some kind of thing in the ice deck. Could be Storm. Okay, so on the play, I think the thing here is just run out Master of the Pearl Trident. Some of you might be confused as to why I wouldn't go with Silvergill Adept here, and the reason is that these blue-red decks are running Lava Dart now, and there's really no reason to run out Silvergill when I've got things to do in hand. If I really needed to draw a land or something, then I might risk running the Silvergill out, but I've got my lands, I've got some creatures to play out. There's no real reason to make Silvergill vulnerable to Lava Dart right now. Okay, so, this is one of these kinds of new Storm decks. When you see turn 2 Pyretic Ritual right now, it almost always seems to mean that they're going for Aria of Flame, and that was in fact what the opponent was doing. So you want to let the ritual resolve so that you can actually counter the Aria. And even though we have to 2-for-1 ourselves, to counter the Aria by pitching one of our blue spells. In this case, I exiled my Tidebinder Mage, since I don't think we're going to be playing against any red creatures right now. Aria Flame is sort of a central card in this deck. They have 4 cards left in hand, almost all certainly instants and sorceries, and they were going to try to get lots and lots of value out of that. So being able to counter it as sort of a key part of their plan is a big deal. So at this point, it's definitely correct to go ahead and run out the Silvergill. We'll reveal the Trickster and, well, drew an island. Not amazing, but we've got another Mutavault. We've got some pressure. It's kind of a 2-turn clock from here. Okay, pieces of the puzzle. What are they going to reveal? So out of all of this, they put Grapeshot and Noxious Revival into their hand, I believe. Meaning that the Ascension and then Faithless Looting went to the graveyard. So Grapeshot, Noxious Revival, 5 cards in hand. So I play the second Mutavault and gonna run out another Silvergill Adept, increase our clock, drew a Force. That's like the perfect draw right there in game 1. And getting for 8 here. Opponent is dead unless they have something amazing to do. So tapping, untapping, tapping again. Pyretic Ritual, no reason to counter that. And then they go for what? What is this that they're casting here? Okay, so Finale of Promise. X equals 3. They went big on this one. You may cast up to 1 target card, blah, blah, blah. It's a sorcery, instant and or sorcery, right. So they went with another ritual and pieces of the puzzle. So basically they're going to keep ramping, put 3 mana back in their pool, and get 2 more cards from pieces of the puzzle and try to storm us out. Fortunately, we can just cut this off right now and just counter Finale of Promise, and the opponent scooped there. So pretty strong stuff, game 1. Let's go to game 2 and see how that went. All right, back for game 2. Opponent will be on the play this time. Opening hands, pretty good. Got some graveyard hate. Got some lords. You can see how Waterlogged Grove can be a little bit clunky. We don't have to worry about our life total too much. I have had, actually, against an Aria of Flame, the self-pinging from Waterlogged Grove be sort of relevant. But we're probably never going to have an opportunity to cycle this game. We're just going to have 2 or 3 lands. We're going to play our spells, take some damage from Waterlogged Grove, and it's probably not going to kill us, but it's doing damage to us that we... Well, I should say it's essentially only contributing negatively. But the payoff is that when games do go long, you get to cycle it. And so far, the payoff generally seems much better than the drawback. But in this particular game, it's pretty much just going to be a drawback. So another island is nice, so I can not take so much damage from the Waterlogged Grove. They start trimming the opponent's graveyard, and it looks like they kept a one land hand. More islands. Maybe I will cycle that Waterlogged Grove. Let's get that Lord out. Since they're on 1 land, I'm really not encouraged to hold up this Deprive. They drew another land, so they only missed 1 land drop. A whole lot of cantrip spells. Okay, we keep drawing mana, this time in AEther Vial. Play that island, play the AEther Vial, and hold up Deprive at this point, because they could draw a land and go for Aria. Again, Ritual is going to resolve. And then we're going to go ahead and counter this Aria with Deprive. All right, so we're looking pretty good here since we have Relic controlling their graveyard. Remember, they went with Finale of Promise, so they are trying to get some value out of their graveyard. Okay, another Deprive is pretty sweet. We can hold up Deprive and Trickster and the Relic activation. Okay, Pyromancer Ascension. I'm going to let this resolve just because we've got their graveyard under control. Flash in Trickster. We've got 5 power. It's a 3-turn clock. AEther Vial up to 2. Lord is pretty nice. Keep trimming their graveyard. Play that Waterlogged Grove. Get the Lord down. Swing for 7. And opponent's in a pretty tough place here. Okay, Desperate Ritual. I could just counter that right now. Should probably just end their turn right away. But I counter the Monomorphose since that's actually trying to draw them a card. Now they've got 1 mana left, and they scooped. So against these new kinds of Storm decks, between Aria Flame, Pyromancer Ascension, I think we have a pretty good setup in these kinds of matchups. We always have our relics, whether in the main or in the side, and then 8 counter spells. Just makes it really hard for them to fight through what we're doing on top of our clock. You could see that I was actually going to be able to cycle this Waterlogged Grove, so I spoke a little bit too soon about the potential, quick game downsides of Waterlogged Grove. I didn't actually take any damage from it because I drew into more lands. So I think 3 has been feeling good so far, but I wouldn't recommend against playing 4. 4 also seems pretty good. It's a great card to have in the deck. The number we want is somewhere between 3 and 4. I've seen some lists, some Merfolk lists with up to 6 of these Horizon lands, including some Fiery Islets. But pretty easy round 1 against this blue-red deck. So 1-0 in the league right now. Please leave any comments down below. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. And please take a second to check out my Patreon page if you'd like to support the channel. And tune in for the next video where I'll be back with round 2 of this Modern League. Thanks, guys. I'll see you there. Bye.